Imagine a world where every desire is satisfied before it even becomes a thought. A world where boredom is erased, where discomfort is treated like a malfunction, and where every moment is padded with some small, effortless pleasure. It sounds heavenly at first. A life without friction, without emptiness, without the sharp edges of being human. But let's ask yourself honestly, what is the real cost of a life where everything feels good and nothing truly matters? Because the pursuit of pleasure, when it becomes constant, carries a shadow most people never see. Could this endless chase, this gentle, soothing flood of gratification, be guiding us not toward liberation, but toward something far more subtle and far more dangerous? And could it be that, without realizing it, we are drifting toward a new kind of slavery, one built not on force, but on comfort? Today, we're going to uncover that truth. We'll peel back the layers of modern psychology, look deeper into the systems that shape our desires, and explore why our craving for ease and indulgence may be quietly eroding something far more precious than pleasure itself, our autonomy. And to understand how we arrived here, we need to begin with the man who predicted this world almost a century ago. Aldous Huxley in Brave New World imagined a future where human beings didn't lose their freedom through oppression or violence, but through pleasure, through comfort so constant, so numbing that the need to resist simply disappeared. There were no chains, no prisons, no tyrants looming in the shadows, just soma, a small pill that smoothed every rough feeling, softened every truth, and dissolved every pain. People weren't controlled by fear. They were controlled by contentment. Not real happiness, but a fog of shallow pleasure that made deeper meaning unnecessary. Huxley believed this was the most insidious form of enslavement, the kind that feels good while it quietly erodes your humanity. Now look at our world. We're not swallowing soma, but aren't we offered our own version of it? A constant feed of tiny dopamine hits, a glow in our palm that offers comfort on demand, endless scrolling that feels soothing till you realize hours have vanished and you feel emptier than before. Our pleasures don't arrive in pill form. They arrive as choices we never really chose. Modern psychology calls part of this trap the hedonic treadmill, a cycle where no matter how much pleasure you consume, you quickly return to the same emotional baseline, forcing you to chase the next hit. Just to feel okay again. You buy something new, you feel a spark, and a week later, the spark fades, and you're already looking for the next upgrade. You binge a show to relax, but after the credits roll, you're tired, a little numb, and somehow still restless. Pleasure promises satisfaction, but delivers repetition. Repetition evolves into habit. Habit transforms into dependence. And dependence, especially the kind that feels harmless, is the beginning of subtle control. Let me ask you something quietly, because your answer matters. How many times this week did you reach for your phone? Not because you wanted something, but because you didn't want to feel something. A flicker of loneliness, a wave of boredom, an unfinished thought you didn't want to confront, a quiet ache you didn't know how to sit with. We don't notice these moments. We just escape them. Not because we're weak, but because modern life has conditioned us to avoid discomfort the moment it appears. And that instinct, that tiny flinch away from ourselves, is where the quiet slavery begins. Not to a ruler, not to an ideology, but to our own unchecked impulses. We stop choosing our pleasures. We simply obey them. Huxley didn't write his warning to frighten us. He wrote it to hold up a mirror, to show how easily people can be pacified by comfort that feels good enough. Because here's the deeper truth. Pleasure is not the enemy, but pleasure without intention, pleasure without boundaries, pleasure without awareness slowly erodes the parts of you that make your life meaningful. Your courage, your curiosity, your capacity for growth, your hunger for genuine purpose. When those parts weaken, you don't even realize something has been taken from you. You simply continue consuming, hoping the next dose of comfort will fill the growing emptiness inside. So before we go deeper, hold on to this. Are you using pleasure, or is pleasure using you? Because once you understand that question, you'll begin to see what Huxley saw, a world where comfort, not cruelty, becomes the quiet architect of control. In the next part, we'll pull back the curtain on the psychological machinery behind this. Dopamine, variable rewards, and the attention economy designed to keep you pleasantly distracted from your own untapped potential. If the previous part revealed the feeling of modern pleasure, this part will reveal the engine behind it. The psychological machinery designed to keep you consuming, even when you think you're in control. To understand how this works, picture yourself stepping into an enormous marketplace. But here, no one is selling clothes, or tools, or food. Every stall, every sign, every vendor is trying to acquire one thing: your attention. Not your money, not your loyalty, not your time, just your attention. Because in this new economy, attention is the currency. And whether you realize it or not, you walk through this marketplace every single day. Not as a shopper, but as the product being bought and sold. This attention economy is not chaotic. It is engineered, precise, psychologically tuned, and its foundation lies deep inside your biology. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky, a leading researcher on stress and dopamine, explains that the human brain is wired to seek rewards, not necessarily to enjoy them. Every time you experience something pleasurable, like on your post, a new message, a funny reel, an exciting notification, your brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter that says, "Pay attention to this. Do it again. Come back for more." But here's the part most people never hear. The part that holds the key to understanding your own behavior. Your brain releases more dopamine in anticipation of pleasure than it does in the actual moment of pleasure. It's not the reward that hooks you. It's the possibility of the reward. This is why you check your phone without thinking. This is why you refresh a feed that hasn't changed. This is why you keep scrolling, even when you're tired. You're not addicted to the content. You're addicted to the next, maybe. and maybe is infinite. Tristan, a former Google design ethicist, revealed that tech platforms borrow a psychological mechanism straight from slot machines' intermittent variable rewards. It works like this. You don't know when the reward will appear. You don't know what it will be. You don't know if it will arrive at all. And that uncertainty keeps you hooked far more powerfully than consistent rewards ever could. This is why checking your phone feels urgent, even when you know nothing important is happening. It's why the small red badge on your screen can override your entire train of thought. It's why one short video turns into 20. These aren't coincidences. They are psychological triggers engineered to keep you engaged, regulated by algorithms that study your patterns with more precision than you might study yourself. And slowly, your attention stops belonging to you. It becomes something you only borrow from the platforms that claim it. Now connect this to Huxley's warning. In Brave New World, people weren't controlled by pain or fear. They were controlled by pleasure so constant that they never thought to resist. Today's equivalent isn't a drug. It's stimulation. Constant, predictable, comforting stimulation. The kind that leaves you feeling entertained but never fulfilled. People assume modern distraction is harmless. But that's the illusion. Because the more easily your attention is captured, the more easily your decisions can be influenced. And the more easily you can be influenced, the more predictable you become. A distracted mind is easier to manipulate. A restless mind is easier to entertain. A numb mind is easier to sell to. The attention economy doesn't need to force you. It only needs to keep you comfortable enough to not notice how much of yourself you've quietly surrendered. Cal Newport, author of Deep Work, says that shallow engagement erodes your ability to focus. In the same way, erosion wears down stone, slowly, invisibly, until suddenly you're left with a mind that feels fractured, restless, and easily overwhelmed. You start tasks you can't finish. You open apps without thinking. You lose time without remembering how. You feel the growing inability to sit alone with your thoughts for even a few minutes. Focus becomes foreign. Stillness becomes uncomfortable. Silence becomes unbearable. Not because you're weak, but because your attention has been conditioned to seek stimulation the way a thirsty person seeks water. So here's the real question. The one most people never ask. How much of your life have you unconsciously traded for tiny hits of dopamine that never leave you satisfied? This is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the architecture of the world shaping your impulses. Because if you don't see the system clearly, the system will continue to work on you without your awareness. And the cost of that unconsciousness is far greater than wasted time. It is the slow erosion of your ability to live with intention. In the next part, we're going to zoom out even further, beyond biology, beyond habits, beyond screens, into the cultural structure that rewards comfort and quietly discourages depth. Because the question isn't just, why are we addicted to pleasure? The question is, what kind of society is created when comfort becomes the highest currency? And even deeper, what happens to the human soul when it forgets how to want anything more than ease? Let's go there. If the modern life revealed how your attention is captured, this part reveals what happens when an entire society becomes shaped by that capture, when comfort stops being a luxury and quietly becomes a value system. Because once you understand this, you'll begin to see why Huxley's warning wasn't just about individuals. It was about civilization. Imagine a culture where difficulty is treated as a flaw, where inconvenience is considered a failure of design, where every new technology is judged not by the depth it adds to life, but by how efficiently it removes effort. A world where you can get everything delivered, everything personalized, everything optimized, everything made smoother, easier, faster. At first, this looks like progress. It feels like advancement. It feels like relief. But underneath that relief, something fragile begins to form. A growing dependence on comfort and a shrinking ability to face anything outside of it. This is what philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville warned about nearly 2 centuries ago. He called it soft tyranny, a kind of control that doesn't feel like oppression. It feels like convenience. It whispers instead of commands. It soothes instead of threatens. It guides instead of forces. And people willingly surrender their autonomy because the alternative feels uncomfortable. This is the world Huxley foresaw. Not a world ruled by violence, but one ruled by pleasure. A society where people become so accustomed to ease that the very idea of resistance feels unnecessary. Look at your own life, and you'll see echoes of it everywhere. You don't need to cook. You can order. You don't need to think. The algorithm decides. You don't need to be bored. There's endless entertainment. You don't need to reflect. Distractions are available on demand. The less effort life requires, the more your strength quietly atrophies. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but gradually. In the same way, a muscle weakens when you stop using it. And here is the hidden danger. Dependence doesn't feel like dependence when it feels good. Huxley once wrote that the most efficient system of control would be one where people love their servitude. Let that sink in for a moment. Not just accept it, not just tolerate it, but love it. Because it feels comfortable and frictionless and familiar. This is not fiction anymore. It is the psychology of modern life. Ask yourself, how many of your choices today were guided by your values, and how many were guided by whatever was easiest? When was the last time you willingly chose the harder path because it aligned with who you want to become? When was the last time you sat alone with your thoughts instead of soothing the slightest discomfort with a quick distraction? These questions are uncomfortable, but discomfort is the doorway to awareness. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described this trap decades before Huxley. He called it the despair of the aesthetic life. The aesthetic life is built on pleasure, beauty, novelty, and stimulation, but it comes at a cost. You become addicted to the next experience, not because it fulfills you, but because it distracts you from the growing emptiness beneath it. Kierkegaard believed the only path to genuine fulfillment was the ethical life, a life built on purpose, responsibility, and commitment. Modern psychology now confirms this. Studies show that people who pursue intrinsic goals, growth, connection, contribution, feel far more satisfied than people chasing extrinsic goals, like wealth, status, or constant pleasure. But our culture pushes the extrinsic relentlessly. Why? Because consumerism needs dissatisfaction to survive. If you were truly content, you would buy less, consume less, scroll less, and question more. And questioning is the one thing a system built on comfort cannot afford. Carl Jung understood this dynamic deeply. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." In a culture saturated with stimulation, facing yourself becomes the most radical act. Because self-reflection requires silence. It requires discomfort. It requires depth. All things comfort teaches you to avoid, so you end up living at the surface of your life. Not because you choose to, but because the world rewards you for staying there. Pause for a moment and ask yourself quietly, what parts of your life have become too comfortable, too automatic, too easy to escape? Where have you traded growth for convenience? Where have you accepted comfort over the possibility of becoming someone stronger? These aren't accusations. They're invitations, because the moment you recognize these patterns, you regain the power to change them. And that power, that spark of awareness, is exactly what modern culture tries to lull to sleep. In the final stage, we will shift from diagnosis to transformation. We'll explore the antidote to modern comfort, the force strong enough to break the cycle of escapism, and the mindset that philosophers and psychologists have long pointed to as the path back to freedom. Because the real question isn't just, how do we escape the trap of pleasure? The real question is, what do we build our lives upon? Once we stop running from discomfort, let's step into that truth next. You've now seen how pleasure shapes your impulses, your attention, even your culture. But knowing the trap is not enough. Understanding the system is not the same as breaking free from it. To reclaim your life, your clarity, you must step into the one truth that has guided human beings out of comfort-driven complacency for centuries. And it begins here. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is the ability to choose what truly matters. Let that settle for a moment, because this is the reversal that turns the entire modern world upside down. Friedrich Nietzsche captured it perfectly when he wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how when you have a purpose, a why." Life stops being a series of impulses and becomes a direction. Pleasure loses its power over you because it can no longer compete with something deeper, something meaningful, something that aligns with your future instead of your momentary cravings. Purpose reorganizes your internal world. It gives weight to your actions. It brings coherence to your decisions. It turns distraction into noise and meaning into signal. Without a purpose, you fall back into the gravity of comfort. With a purpose, you rise above it. Viktor Frankl, a man who endured unimaginable suffering, yet discovered profound meaning within it, identified 3 pathways that anchor the human spirit, creating something of value. Not consuming, not accumulating, creating. Building something that leaves a mark on the world, even if only in one small corner of it. Experiencing love and connection, the kind that strengthens you, expands you, and invites you to become more fully yourself in the presence of others, transforming suffering into growth. Not avoiding pain, but discovering who you become when you walk through it. with intention, these forms of meaning are incompatible. With a life built purely on comfort, they require depth. They require intention. They require you to show up for your own life in a way the modern world rarely encourages. But meaning does more than enrich your life. It protects you. When your life has direction, you become less vulnerable to the seduction of pleasure. You stop needing constant distraction. You stop searching for the next dopamine hit, because something inside you is finally being fed. But purpose alone is not enough. Purpose is the compass. You still need the strength to walk the path. That strength is discipline. And here's the paradox: that most people avoid discipline is the foundation of freedom. Not restriction, not punishment, not rigidity. Discipline is the ability to choose your future self over your current craving, to choose growth over ease, to choose meaning over momentary pleasure. Jocko Willink expressed this truth simply: discipline equals freedom, because every time you choose discipline, you weaken the grip of impulse. You reclaim your attention. You shape your identity. You strengthen the muscle of intention. And this muscle, once it grows, becomes the gateway to a life that modern culture can't manipulate. So how do you begin? Not with grand ambition, not with dramatic resolutions. You begin with small, consistent acts of rebellion against a world that wants you comfortably distracted. Turn off unnecessary notifications, silence the noise, so your attention can breathe again. Create one space of stillness each day. Even 10 minutes can recalibrate your mind in ways hours of scrolling never will. Protect your focus. Set aside time to work deeply on something that matters to you. Keep one promise to yourself daily. Even the smallest promise builds identity, self-trust, and internal strength. Allow yourself to feel discomfort instead of escaping it. Sit with boredom, with restlessness, with the quiet ache of truths you've ignored. Discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is your instructor. These acts may look small, but in a world engineered for distraction, they are revolutionary. Because ultimately, this journey is not about avoiding pleasure. It is about awakening. It is about becoming someone who is not shaped by algorithms or trapped by habit or guided by whatever feels easiest in the moment. It is about remembering that your life is not meant to be passively consumed. It is meant to be consciously lived. The world will offer you comfort. Your soul will ask for meaning. One of them will win. So ask yourself with sincerity and courage, what kind of life am I choosing? When no one is watching, am I choosing depth or ease, purpose or distraction, growth or comfort? Because this is the moment, your moment, to step off the soft path of modern pleasure and onto the rugged, beautiful, transformative path of intention. The chains were invisible, but now you can see them. And once you see them, they can be broken. Thank you for watching this content. The next video is much more important. Don't miss that. I'll see you there.